When I was on my July vacations, I traveled to a university to do a pre-college summer program about antibiotic resistance. It's likely that you've never heard of it, but it is something that's been happening since forever. Good evening, my name is Sofia Sanches, and I'm going to talk about marketing reasons, antibiotic resistance, and how do they relate. For starters, I think you all know that infections can be caused by various organisms, such as viruses, protozoa, and helminths. However, I would like to emphasize one more group that deserves our special attention: bacteria, which have come to be known for their ability to develop antibiotic resistance. Well, here am I going on and on about it, but what is it? Have you ever taken antibiotics and stopped before the prescribed course simply because you felt better? It's a common mistake, but it can have serious consequences. And why is that? When you first get sick, there are weak and strong bacteria causing your infection. And your antibiotic, given the period you are supposed to take it, will kill all of them. However, when you stop taking it, you may have killed the weaker bacteria. It doesn't really matter. Once the stronger ones stay in your organism, they learn how to recognize the medicine you're taking without it killing them. And suddenly, you have the same disease, but this time with resistant bacteria that will take another stronger antibiotic to kill them. So, the meaning of antibiotic resistance is when bacteria evolve to evade the effect of antibiotics. Okay, now that you got that, hopefully, you probably think that this is a very important topic and people actually go after it, right? Well, yes and no. Let me ask you something. How much do you think it costs for an antibiotic to be produced, since its idea till its final product? Some of you may have thought something between $800,000 and $5 million, maybe less, maybe more, I don't know. But the truth is, for an antibiotic to be produced, it can cost from $400 million up to $1.2 billion. That's a lot of money, right? Now, picture this. You're the CEO of a very successful company that produces regular medications. And one day, someone introduces you to antibiotic resistance, and they ask you for help to develop medications to help the world population who is suffering with the lack of them. What would you do in the situation? Let's first suppose you said, yes, of course I will help. And you end up spending more money than you imagined on your research, but you don't really think it's going to make a difference. And your antibiotic works. It helps lots of people. Everything seems to be going great until a few months later when your business goes bankrupt. You get very confused because what happened? People were using your medication, people were buying it. So you go to check your company's bank extract, and there you notice that the antibiotic you helped produce is the one with the lowest profit, even though it's what you invested more money in. And if you think for a minute, it kind of makes sense, right? When you need an antibiotic, you go to the nearest pharmacy, buy one, use it, get better, and you probably just need to do this a few times in your life, or at least I hope so. And here's the thing. What I'm trying to say is, antibiotics aren't lucrative because people don't buy lots of it at once or as frequently as Ozempic and Roacutan, for example. Okay, let's go back to your story. Let's now you said, no, I'm sorry, but I won't help because, you don't want your company to go bankrupt, right? And you go on with your life until a few months later, you decide to take some vacations off work, and you travel to, let's say, Brazil. You enjoy your trip, the half of your trip, yes, because, who wouldn't? Until you start not feeling very well, and you go to a doctor, and there they tell you you've just contracted a bacterial infection. You get worried at first because you're sick, right? But then you remember, I have all the money in the world. I can pay for any treatment that I need. Yeah, let me tell you, this time it isn't about money. I'm certain all of you have heard at some point in your lives that money can't buy everything, and that couldn't be more real. Health is something that money can't buy, especially if it hasn't been made yet. So, as it turned out, the antibiotic you needed just hadn't been produced yet. So, yeah, that didn't end well for you. What you all saw in this short story of ours was the marketing reasons put above people. And the thing is, I think you all notice, that it usually doesn't reflect on the people that are doing that. Except this time it did. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this car brand, Volvo. Yes, the car factory. But wait, now you're probably wondering, what does all of what she was saying about antibiotic resistance and all that stuff has anything to do with a car factory? Let me tell you, Volvo invented this. It's a seatbelt, right? It's your car seatbelt and almost every other car in the world seatbelt. What if I told you that Volvo could have patented it? But they didn't. They chose people over money. They chose to save people's lives, even if it wasn't their cars providing the safety. So why don't big companies such as Google, Amazon, and Apple invest a little part of their money that I'm sure it won't make a difference to them to help with something that's become a global health crisis? Just so you have an idea, nowadays, with people self-medicating, fake news running wild on the internet, and diagnostic errors, we're heading towards the time where antibiotics just hadn't been discovered. Meaning bacteria has become so resistant to almost every medication that's been produced since the first antibiotic, penicillin. With all of this, I can't help but wonder, how many things don't we do because we put profit above people? For how long will money interfere on basic healthcare? For example, in the US, people with diabetes have to buy insulin. They have to literally pay to live. And that is so absurd. The same thing happens with people who use glasses. Isn't it crazy that you have to pay just so you can see properly? Well, as Benjamin Franklin would say, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So perhaps the best antibiotic for us as a society is to evolve, to overcome obstacles and meet our real needs. I mean, if bacteria can do it, why can't we? Thank you and have a good night.